Hey y'all, this is Waylon from Swiftwood Bows. I've had a lot of people asking me how I do my cane handle wraps. This is what they look like on a bow that I have available right now. It's a real attractive looking, durable handle that has a real simple aesthetic. And the good news is that they're very easy to do and inexpensive in terms of material. So I'm going to show you on a bow that I'm finishing up here how I do the handle wrap. So take a look. Alright, here's the bow that I'm going to put the handle wrap on. I've already got it marked off here, my 4-inch handle, just as a frame of reference. First thing I'm going to do, and it's not entirely essential, but I feel like it helps, so I'm just going to put down a quick coat of contact cement on the bow, just to give the cane wrap something to tack to. If you don't have this, you don't need it. The handle wrap will stay in place pretty well by itself. This is just a little added insurance. Alright, I'll let that tack up for a minute here. While we're doing that, let me show you what I'm working with here in terms of the cane. So you can get cane pretty easily on Amazon. They make it for chair making. You can get it in a variety of widths. I like the thinner width because I think it looks better. There's no reason not to use a thicker width. A lot of people do, or wider, I should say. It's just a matter of personal preference. If you're going to use these narrower strips, then I recommend doubling them up. Otherwise, you're not going to have the length that you need to get the full handle wrap. So if you're going with a wider one, you don't need to double it up like I'm doing. But otherwise it's essentially the same. So I've got my two strips here side by side, basically acting as one wider strip. I'm going to start my wrap here at the top of the handle wrap, and I'm going to have some extra of the end sticking out, and I'm going to wrap back over that tag end. Like so. Now I'm going to continue wrapping for a few passes here where I go over those tag ends and continue to lock them down into place. From the very beginning here, you're going to want to keep things nice and tight. So go ahead and pull on those tag ends if you need to tighten them down. I want to keep uniform tightness, and I want to keep uniform spacing. I want there to be no space between the strips. And after about 3 or 4 passes going over my tag ends, I'm going to pull them out of the way like this, and I'm going to come underneath them. Just kind of cinching up underneath them so there's no gap there. And then I'm just going to continue wrapping down the length of the handle wrap. Keeping it as tight as possible without snapping the strips. Now that we're getting close to the end here, got about that much further to go, I need to add in another element here. We need to bind off the end. So this is kind of the tricky part, and it gets a little finicky, so bear with me. I'm going to take this piece of hemp thread here. It's just a folded over piece of string. I like to use something that's got a little bit of thickness to it and is kind of soft. I don't want to use something real fine and strong like a fishing line or something like that. That could break the cane. So I'm going to slip this under so that I've got this loop here sticking out towards my finished end. And now I'm just going to loosely now, not pulling tight, but just kind of loosely start wrapping around. The looseness will be important if you're going to get your ends pulled back through. So do as many passes as you need to complete your wrap. And then, let's see, looks about right. I'm going to take my ends of my strips and I'm going to tuck them through that hemp loop and pull them all the way through, straightening them out if I need to. Now, the reason for the looseness that we created in those last few passes is so that we can gently guide our strips through. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Just kind of popping it through like that. If you pull too hard, you can break your strips. So be gentle, and then just go ahead and pull those all the way through. You can get rid of your string now. So now all this should be pretty lined up, but it's also going to be a little bit loose, so now we need to tighten it. You can't just tighten it by pulling here or you'll snap. So you have to kind of use your hand and fingers to guide everything in place, and then you're just going to kind of wrap the whole thing together and pull a little bit on this end here to work together to just tighten up those last few passes that you did. Now go back to your first tag ends, give those a gentle pull to make sure that nothing's loosened up on that end. You just want to make sure everything's good and locked down and tight before you trim anything off. So once you're satisfied with where everything is at, placement wise and tightness, then you can take a pocket knife or whatever and just carefully find where those ends are sticking out, kind of between strips, and real carefully cut the ends like that. And there won't be any sign of where they were sticking out. Like so. If there's any little loose fibers on there, just pull those off. There's one more step or a couple more steps that I do. One is to add a little bit of aesthetic to it. If you like this real light color look to it, that's perfectly fine. You can leave it like this. I like to add a little bit of darkness to it. The way that I do that is with a heat gun. You're gonna have to be really careful doing this, otherwise you can end up damaging the integrity of the cane strips, and you can also mess up the finish on your bow. So I put a cloth here to protect the finish of my bow. I'm going to put the heat gun on a low setting, and I'm going to go pretty slow and careful, just kind of moving the heat gun around, not holding it in any one particular spot, and I'm just going to kind of lightly toast the cane just to give it a little bit of color. There. Gives it a nice kind of toasted look. Gives it a little bit of character. I'll let that cool off, and then we're going to coat it with a little bit of glue just to kind of lock it all down and give it a little bit of weather protection. Not that it really needs it. The cane is pretty durable and weather resistant in and of itself, but I feel like the glue just kind of helps, like I said, lock everything in place. Alright, I'm going to coat my handle with a little bit of Titebond 3. I dip my fingers in a little bit of water here just to kind of not have it be so thick and clumpy. I'm just going to spread it out nice and thin. Okay, we'll let that dry. Alright, just wanted to show you how it looks all finished up here.